1460 AM, and Latino Sports, KEYH 850 AM. Call in at 832-570-8075 and follow me on social media. See you then. Friends, this is Gilbert Andrew Garcia of A Tip from Gilbert. Talk, inspiration, and prayer. Today, we'll be having a rebroadcast, but as always, we'll see you next time. Friends, this is Gilbert Andrew Garcia of A Tip from Gilbert. Talk, inspiration, and prayer. Listen to my show every Monday from 11 to 12 on KWWJ 1360 AM, KYOK 1140 AM, KCOH at 1230 KCOH.com, Sangeet Radio at 95.1 FM, 1460 AM, and Latino Sports, KEYH 850 AM. Call in at 832-570-8075 and follow me on social media. See you then. All right, Houston, you have me, Gilbert Garcia, with another tip from me. Talk, inspiration, and prayer. We are ready to rock and roll. And again, don't forget, call in anytime, 832-570-8075. That magic number is 832-570-8075. And once again, I want to say thank you to KWWJ. Keep walking with Jesus, 1360 AM, KYOK, 1140 AM, KCOH, The Source, at 1230 KCOH.com. Latino Sports, one of our newest members, KEYH 850 AM. And we're going to have a lot of sports, of course, coming up over the next 12 months with the World Cup. And then Sangeet Radio, 95.1 FM, 1460 AM. We are ready to go. I have Miss Avery Belyeu. Belyeu. Right. I'm so sorry, Ms. Belyeu. And she is a Chief Executive Officer of the Montrose Center.
That's right.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Well, you're so welcome. Let me ask you this. First of all, how long have you been in Houston?
So I've been in Houston a year and a few months.
Oh my gosh, you're brand new.
Yeah, I am. I took this job February of last year.
And where were you before?
So I was in Dallas-Fort Worth for 9 years.
Oh, wow. Well, you know what?
Don't hold that against me.
Now, I was going to say, you made the right choice coming here.
I agree with you. I did. Don't tell the Dallasites I said that, but this is a fantastic city.
Well, where are you from then?
So I'm originally from North Florida. I was born and raised in North Florida, but I've lived all up and down the East Coast. So I went to college in North Carolina, chased my career to New York City and then Boston, and then moved to Texas for a grad degree at TCU at Bright Divinity School, which is on the campus of TCU.
How wonderful.
Did not intend to stay in Texas.
Yep.
But then got recruited for a job in Dallas and then got recruited for this job here. So I guess now I'm a Texan.
There you go. Well, you know what? You got here as fast as you could,
That's
as they
right.
say.
That's right.
Well, let me ask you this. What got you involved in, I'm going to call this, is it social work? Would you call it that? Or would you call it public service? Or what would you call it?
Yeah.
When you talk about the Montrose Center, I know you do so many wonderful things.
We do. The Montrose Center does a lot.
Yeah, we're going to go into all of that.
Yeah,
but what do you call it as a broad umbrella?
The Montrose Center is a social service.
Okay, social service.
Yeah,
what got you involved with social services?
Yeah, so, I think everybody who works in something that is cause-related has a personal story that connects to it. And I have a personal story, too.
Oh, no kidding.
So, I am a queer individual. I was raised in a really conservative household. And so my coming out experience was really hard. I was raised as one of Jehovah's Witnesses, if you know what they are.
Well, you know what? I don't really know what it is.
Yeah.
But I mean, you hear of it.
Yeah.
Is it a very conservative faith?
Very conservative, kind of Christian sect. It was born in the United States in the late 1800s. Very, very conservative. And they're very insular and closed. And so anybody who steps outside in any way of kind of the paradigm of what you're supposed to be gets kicked out.
Is that right?
And so I knew I was going to get kicked out of my childhood faith tradition.
Do you call it a church?
Yeah, you call it faith. They don't really use the word church. Okay. Congregation is what they use.
Congregation.
But yeah, and so, I knew that was going to happen. That was kind of looming in my future. And that meant also kind of losing my family, my social network. So
no kidding.
My coming out experience, unfortunately, like about 20% of LGBTQ folks, was really tough. And so when I had that experience, I came out and I looked around for resources, and where I was living, there weren't any. There wasn't anything to help me. There was national
No one to talk
organizations.
to,
There wasn't an organization locally that I could really turn to. And so that got me thinking and saying, hey, I want to be part of a solution here. I know there's a lot of people like me who have a hard time and they need somewhere to go. And so that kind of catapulted me into a career of working at this intersection of what I would say is public health and LGBTQ identity. And so that's what I've really done for most of my career. And then, we're so lucky here in Houston. We'll talk about it. The Montrose Center is exactly that place that I needed when I was a kid and I didn't have it.
Well, hold on. So when you grew up, when young Avery was walking the halls of, high school or middle school, you never thought you'd be in social services? What did you think you would be or were going to do?
I mean, I'll say my life was really, really focused on my religion. And so when you're part of that kind of religious tradition, folks who are listening who know Jehovah's Witnesses know this, most of them don't go to college. My parents weren't college graduates.
Is that right?
They really dedicate their life to the religion. And so I really didn't have an idea of what I was going to be or do outside of the kind of religious paradigm I was raised in. It was really hard to imagine for me what that was going to look like. I'm the first person in my family to go to college. And so I kind of had to chart my own path without much of a roadmap.
Very interesting. Now, for me, I'm first generation college as well, but it was different. My story as a Latino was different. And most of us, of course, just never had the opportunity to go to college. It wasn't ingrained in us in the religion or anything else to not go.
Right.
They just never had the opportunity. In fact, my lineage of my family, the way out of poverty was the Marine Corps.
Oh, wow.
That was the way to sort of, remember the GI Bill, which started to do things, and that was my grandfather. And then my dad was a real estate broker, but he never went to college and just worked hard all the time. That was the whole thing. Work hard, work hard.
Yeah.
Very interesting that it came from the faith about, just being so devoted to God that you didn't have time to really, I guess, go to college or
well, it was seen as a distraction. So you're supposed to devote yourself fully to that, right? So if you imagine being raised in that environment, like I think, there's quite a few religious sects in this country that are similar to that. And then coming out of that and going, well, gosh, what do I do now, right? So I had a lot of questions in my early 20s, like, what do I do now? But I'm really grateful that I did have mentors along the way, especially in my college environments, who helped me understand, okay, you have a heart for cause-related work.
Mm-hmm.
You clearly see a problem and you want to find a solution, and you're motivated to put your heart into it and to do that, and to have a, sometimes in religious settings we'll use the term servant leader, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You have a desire to be a servant leader. So figure out where to direct that, right? Which is the big question of all of our lives. Where do we direct our passion, our energy? And so I'm really grateful mine got directed into helping others.
Very interesting. And so you went to TCU. That was the beginning of the whole thing, or
TCU was years down the line.
Okay,
I'm overeducated. So
okay.
I went to Appalachian State University in Boone, North Carolina, in the mountains of North Carolina. It's part of the UNC system for undergrad, UNCG for a grad degree. And then I left and went to New York City for my career. And then at 30, I was working in suicide prevention for a federally funded agency. And I was getting to do really cool work around the intersection of faith communities and suicide prevention.
Oh my goodness.
And I was working with the Office of Faith and Neighborhood-Based Partnerships that was created during the Bush administration and was continued during the Obama administration and then Trump's first time in office. And really was trying to work with that office to say, how do we mobilize faith leaders to be equipped to help solve our suicide crisis in this country?
And how pervasive is it?
We unfortunately have one of the highest suicide rates in the industrialized world.
Meaning the United States?
The United States.
And why do you think that is?
Well, it's really complicated. There's a variety of reasons. What we do know from the epidemiologists, which are the smart people that look at all the data to try to tell us why, unfortunately, in this country, there's a lot of things that are upstream from mental health, right, that impact mental health. And in our country, we have not attended to those things in the way other countries have that are similar to us.
Mm-hmm.
So things like a social safety net, right? Making sure everyone has access to healthcare, everyone has access to education. Our poverty rates are higher than in other places in the industrialized world. We know economics has an impact on mental health. If you're struggling to survive, to feed your kids, you're going to feel like a failure. That's going to impact your mental health. So we do know there's a lot of things that are going on that we wouldn't say are mental health. We'll say fundamental health, which we should.
But is there
other things.
Is there a connection between poverty and suicide?
There is.
No kidding.
There is. So there was a great resource created by the CDC a few years back where they looked at all the data. I mean, they looked at an exhaustive amount of data to say, let's look at all of the what's called risk factors, right? And the protective factors for suicide. And they found that poverty was the greatest common denominator.
Wow.
If we were to eliminate poverty in this country, we would see our suicide rates drop. So everything is tied, everything is connected, right? Sometimes we'll have these conversations in really siloed ways. I think what I've learned through my career is we have to be having them all together because it's really one big conversation.
Hold that thought, because that is fascinating to me. We have a caller already. Is there Alexandra on the line? Alexandra, are you there?
Yes, I am.
What do you got? Question for me and Miss Avery Belyeu of the Montrose Center. We're talking right now about suicide prevention, but what do you got?
My question was, what would your advice be for someone trying to pursue a career in a nonprofit organization like you?
Oh, great. So how does one become a social service person?
Right. Well, I love that question. Thanks for it. I mean, there's a lot of different pathways, right? So certainly one way is through education. So there are certain degrees that lend themselves to working in a nonprofit, depending on what type of work you want to do, right? Because nonprofits do all sorts of work.
Yep.
So, it could be that you're focused on a cause that you really care about and you find a degree pathway that matches that cause. Or if you just think about nonprofits in general, a lot of folks get a degree in public administration, an MPA, which is really great for working in nonprofits, a master's in public health, an MPH, or a social work degree, right? The Montrose Center is full of amazing social workers. So that's a really great degree because those folks think about systems and they think about how to care for folks individually. So those degrees are pathways. The other thing I would say is just get involved. So most nonprofits, including the Montrose Center, we love volunteers. Because we do a lot of good work, but our impact is expanded when other people come alongside us to help us.
Do they get training? I mean, how do you?
They do.
I mean, because you can't just say, okay, start helping.
That's right. So there's lots of different ways that folks volunteer. Sometimes directly serving our clients, sometimes doing things that are more community based. But volunteering is a great way to get involved, to get to know an organization, understand the way nonprofits work, and dip your toes in the water and say, hey, is this something that I really care about? Is this something that I want to do?
And so how do you begin? So let's say, Alexandra, I mean, how do you begin? Do you just, United Way, are y'all United Way?
We are United Way.
So is that like you go to United Way and look at all the groups and you say, well, God, I'm interested in that. I'm interested in that.
I think that's a great way to start. United Way has a lot of different agencies. We're one of them, right? So that's a great way to understand Houston's nonprofit environment and ecosystem. And then every organization will have a different pathway. We have a professional that's dedicated just to volunteers.
No kidding.
So you can sign up. That person will get to know you. They'll bring you into a cohort of other volunteers, and then we'll train you to do things that are matched with your interests and abilities.
Wonderful. What say you there, Alexandra?
That all sounds great. Thank you.
All right, Alexandra, you know what to do. United Way, Montrose Center, go, 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 go. Thank you for calling in, Alexandra. So coming back for a second, how many volunteers do y'all have?
Oh, that's a great question. Hundreds.
Hundreds?
I don't have the exact
That's
number.
a lot.
Yeah. And of course it rolls out. We have volunteers who have been volunteering with us for 20, 30 years, right? We have others that just came on board. So I don't have an exact figure in my head, but it's lots of people.
And so how many staff do you have?
So we have 93 staff.
God, that's big.
Yeah, it is. So we're pretty, kind of, I would say a mid-sized nonprofit, but on the upper side.
Well, it sounds big to me.
Yeah.
I mean, well, let's go back for a second because I think a lot of people would like to hear some more information about suicide prevention because that's so important, especially with our youth.
It is. That's right.
What are the signs that a person should look for to say, you know what, my son or daughter is going through something, or my friend is going through something, and therefore I need to encourage them to get help? And what is the signs?
So for folks who are really wanting to know more about that, one resource I'll just share with you.
Go ahead.
I really encourage you to look at the American Association of Suicide Prevention and look at their website where they have a lot of the signs, because there's a lot of them and it varies by person to person. And there are cultural differences too. So there's things to be attentive to. But broadly speaking, I would say this: if you see any type of significant change in behavior, someone becoming more withdrawn, right? Someone being less communicative. But also another change of behavior could be risk taking. All of a sudden, someone who really wasn't a risk taker could start taking a lot of risks really, really fast.
You mean in their life, not like in
right.
investments or anything?
Right, like risk-taking behavior. And that could look like all sorts of things, right?
Drinking, driving, and things of that.
Right, exactly. So anything that seems really risky that's out of character for that person. Certainly, anything like giving away possessions. If you know this person has really prized these things and all of a sudden like, I want to give you this, and it's something they've loved their whole life, that might be a sign that there's something going on, right? So any kind of significant change, we do know that that change in behavior could also include, not just the kind of signs of depression we think of oftentimes, which is withdrawn or sad, it could look like anger. For a lot of men, it actually looks like depression sometimes correlates with a symptom of being angry. So it could look like acting out, right, for a young man or a young boy. It could look like expressions of anger, which are not typical for them. Any sudden change in behavior might tell you something here is going on. Also, sometimes there's verbal cues. People might express things like, I just don't see this is worth it anymore. I just don't see a way out. I don't want to continue going on. All of those small verbal cues might be verbal cues. There's something happening that you should attend to.
Well, we're going to talk about the Montrose Center. I apologize, we're off message.
You're totally fine. This all connects.
But here's the thing. So let's pretend I see someone that's like that.
Yeah.
What do I do?
Yeah.
Who do I call? Do I take them under my arm and say, you know, I just noticed you've been doing this and this?
Yeah.
It sounds like an intervention almost.
It does.
Or do you go to a place and say, I'd like you to call my friend because I just see these things?
Yeah.
I mean, what do you do there?
It could be both and, right? So depending on your relationship to the person, you know, I'm a big believer in the fact that all of us should know how to ask the hard question, which is, you know, first of all, say, I'm concerned about you. I care about you. Are you thinking about suicide?
Interesting.
And to ask that question, and it feels really funky the first time you ask that to someone,
yes.
right? Because it feels like it's invasive.
Just say the word thinking about suicide. Those three words kind of don't go together in a normal everyday conversation.
So, you know, what I've told people when I train folks, and I've done this for years, is to say, you know, go stand in front of a mirror by yourself and practice out loud asking that question and say it 4 or 5, 6 times to get your tongue wrapped around it and comfortable. Once you've asked one time, you're going to feel more comfortable asking it again. I've asked that question so many times, and let me tell you, I'm always glad that I did. Whether the answer was, no, I'm okay, but you're right, I'm not doing my best. Hey, let's talk, let's get you help. Or if the question is yes. And then you really can say, okay, well, then let's find a way to get you help.
Wow.
Right. One resource I would just say is we're really, really fortunate that we have consolidated what was the National Suicide Prevention Line into a new 3-digit number, 988, which has been live now for a few years. So rather than having to memorize a long number, you have one number, 988.
Is that nationally?
That's national.
988, that's suicide prevention.
That was through an act of Congress that authorized
988. Write it down, everybody, just because you just don't know.
So that is the National Suicide Prevention Line.
It would seem to me, although I mean, I don't know, and I've had friends commit suicide, and I, as someone who, you know, has had friends commit suicide in my high school, it's like, it has stayed with me to say to myself, did I miss a sign?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, and these are like really good friends. I'm like, did I miss something? How could I have missed it?
Right.
Or, you know, I had one friend that, you know, I mean, I know this sounds graphic. We're on the radio here, but, you know, used a firearm to commit suicide. I had another person that, you know, people say, oh, they're so depressed, they drank themselves to death. Well, that's what happened.
Yeah.
And I always thought to myself, how did I miss those signs?
Right.
And I did not know, of course, about 988.
Right.
And I guess I'm looking back, and who knows, you can't look backwards.
You can't, that's right.
But I have a feeling if I brought it up, it would have led to a very confrontation where they would have said, no, I'm not that. And what makes you say they would have gotten offended?
You know, I think that fear,
do you see that?
That fear is something that a lot of us hold. I will tell you, I've never had someone get offended when I ask the question. Because it's an expression of care and concern, right? It's you reaching out your hand and saying, hey, I care about you. I'm here to help, right? And so most of the time, folks do not get angry. Now, again, one of the things I think I want to follow up on what you said is, it's also, as those of us that are survivors, someone who have lost someone, we can't carry around that guilt, right? We have to let that go because even if you are educated, you know all the signs, you still may miss something, right? But it does speak to the fact that all of us should be educated about how to care for each other. And so I think there's plenty of ways to get educated. There's plenty of ways to learn the signs, know how to act on the signs, right?
That's right.
It's a big part of what we do at the Montrose Center in partnership with others. We're part of the network of organizations that care for folks and try to prevent suicide. And so all of us can do that. And even if we do and we lose someone, to know that, you know, that's not our fault. We shouldn't blame ourselves for that.
Well, hold on to that thought, because I want to go to the Montrose Center. I really want to get deep into the thing that you do. We have another caller. Was there another caller there? Is there a Mauricio there?
Hey, Gilbert, good morning.
Mauricio, what do you got for me today on a tip from me? Talk, inspiration, prayer with Miss Avery Belyeu.
Okay, first of all, I am very proud of you. I am watching your show here doing therapy.
Well, how are you doing?
I'm doing much better. Thank you for asking.
Wow. Well, that's pretty cool that you're listening to us. What do you think of the show so far?
It really good, and you have a really great guest. I would like to make a question to Ms. Belyeu.
Yep. Go for it.
What has been the biggest challenge you have faced in leading the Montrose Center, and how did you overcome it?
That's a great question. Thanks for asking. Leading an organization is always a really dynamic thing, right? It's when you're a CEO, it's not just one job. It's like 5 or 6 jobs.
That's right.
Right. So I think particularly in this moment, because of what the Montrose Center does, the Montrose Center is focused on caring for everyone in our community, but we have a special target population. We focus on LGBTQIA plus folks, so lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, intersex folks. And in this moment, unfortunately, our community that we focus on is facing a lot of things that is making their day-to-day life harder and making them a bit afraid. And so I think one of my greatest challenges is how for us to wrap our arms wide and make sure that we're caring for those needs as they emerge. Because there's a lot of new needs that are emerging where folks are having more need than they did, say, when I came on a year ago. So how to wrap my arms around that and care for that is really, really important. So that's been one kind of challenge that has dominated a lot of my thinking. The other thing is, I'm leading a nonprofit that has been in existence since 1978, which is super awesome. So we have this amazing legacy, right? But if you're someone who thinks about organizational management, because I'm an organizational management geek, right? Organizations go through cycles. And so one of the other challenges, and one that I think I'm really excited for us to step into and lean into, is to say, we have to constantly be reviewing everything we're doing and seeing, are we in a place of doing our very best in every single thing that we do? Do we need to pivot and do something totally new, totally different, right? What do folks need now? And how do we respond to what folks need in this moment? Because we've been doing this for so long, it's really easy to get into a habit of saying, oh, we created this program because of a need that existed a decade ago. But you have to constantly be in conversation with the community you serve to say, okay, is that still what you need? Or do you need something new? Do you need something different? So that process of taking this really amazing legacy organization, and I would say helping it to be more dynamic, more intentionally in conversation with our beautiful city around how we can show up, that's been an interesting challenge. It's one I think we're meeting really successfully because my staff are super excited to do it, but it's a little different than how the organization operated in the past. So those are the two things I would name, kind of making sure we're dynamic and being responsive, and then one, how do we meet this moment?
And how about funding?
Wow,
hold on with us, Mauricio. Is funding an issue all the time? It just seems like it always is.
Yeah, thanks for that question.
Are you getting any funding from organizations that are being impacted by the current politics?
Yeah,
and I'm not going to say Trump or this, but the politics of today.
Exactly. So we are, like a lot of nonprofits in our ecosystem, right? We are very heavily grant funded, and those grants most of the time come through either directly from the federal government and agencies to us, or from the federal government to the state of Texas and then to us, right? And so that accounts for over 50% of our revenue, right? And in many instances, this is our ability to care for people. We do a lot of direct assistance. So we do a lot of assistance of someone who, for example, is a victim of domestic violence, right? Who's fleeing intimate partner violence. Not only do we provide care and support, but we will pay for rent, right?
No kidding.
We'll pay for transportation. But that's money that has to come to us to give to someone else for help. And that's a lot of money. And so thankfully, the state of Texas has a big commitment to that. We do a very similar program for folks who are living with HIV and AIDS, especially folks who are aging with HIV and AIDS, right? To help them to make sure they have stable housing and transportation. There is certainly the fear and the concern. While we have not faced any funding cuts, I do know some of our partner agencies have. And there is certainly concern about this current federal budget that's working its way through Congress and is headed to the Senate, because we do know exactly what's written in that bill. And if that bill passes the way it is currently written, it will be disastrous for the social services sector, not just the Montrose Center, the entire social services ecosystem. It will be absolutely disastrous for so many of us. And that's going to be a problem, not just for one nonprofit. It's going to be a problem for the city of Houston and for Harris County.
Well, hold on to that second. Mauricio, anything else you got?
No, that was a great response. Thank you so much. And I just want to take a moment for the opportunity and says on July 20, we have Independence Day for the Colombia. So the Consulate of Colombia is doing a gathering of like a festival in Waterworks, and you are cordially invited, and Miss Avery Belyeu too. So we want to have all people gathering in that park.
So it's Colombia's Independence Day. Is that what you said?
Yes, sir.
And
July 20.
Do you know how long the country's been a country? Like what year was that? Do you recall?
1868.
1868. Wow. In the scheme of life, that's like just yesterday. Mauricio, thank you for joining us.
Thank you. And thank you, Gilbert. You are doing a great job. You look handsome and amazing on the screen.
Well, I had to have hair and makeup today, and so hopefully they got it right. But thank you for that very much, my friend. Don't get better.
Congratulations on your daughter.
Oh, my God. Well, thank you for that. I mean, I have a daughter, and she's my apple of my eye. There's 4 kids in my family. She's the baby. She's the only girl. She's my stay-up buddy, and she's going to be leaving me to go to University of Chicago in September.
Oh, wonderful.
And I'm already crying.
I'm sure.
I'm crying, Mauricio. Thank you, my friend, for calling. Thank you for saying that.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
So, excuse me, Ms. Avery, when you think about that bill, just give me a roundabout if you can. If you can't, you can't. I mean, give our listeners some roundabout of when you talk about it, it'll be very difficult. I forgot the word choice you said, but for all the nonprofits, do you think the budget, if half of it, your budget comes from grants, would you say you're going to lose half of that half? I mean, are we talking about like 25% funding of some of these nonprofits is going to be gone?
Yeah, and I think it really depends on what someone does, right? The Montrose Center is really fortunate in that we are resilient because we work across what we call the kind of continuum of care. So we don't just do one thing. We do many, many different things for our target population. So we would be less impacted, I think, than some agencies that say they focus on one issue, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we have agencies in this city that they have grown up across many years doing excellent work on one thing. For example, they only do HIV prevention and services and care. So if the funding is cut broadly across the spectrum for that area, which we know is starting to already happen in research, they will be disastrously impacted. It'd be much bigger than 25%. The Montrose Center does a lot of different things. So for us, I would say 25% of our 50% is probably about right. If I had to guess, I think that it depends agency by agency. Some agencies, it's going to be much harder, right? And these are conversations these are very real conversations. We're having these conversations as nonprofit leaders here in the city. We're talking to each other to say, if this happens, how do we think about the whole ecosystem, not just my nonprofit? Yep. How do we look at this city and this county, and how do we rise up as leaders to care for our people and make sure that we can link arms and make sure that everyone's going to be okay, whatever that takes. And so those are conversations that a lot of us are having with each other.
Wow. Well, is there any way to say, and I'm not being snippy, how do we impact the bill itself? Yeah. Because before we get to D-Day, which is here we are, how do we scale back? How do you prevent this?
You call your lawmakers.
There you go.
Call your lawmakers. You call them daily if you need to. You express significant concern about this bill, about its funding cuts to social services. You get loud about that, and you can do it every single day. And those calls really do make a difference, right? That lets them know what people care about. And so I think sounding the alarm bell and saying, this is going to be a problem. And again, we drive around Houston. We see our neighbors who are living on the street. Mm-hmm. We hear our mayor say that he's very concerned about this and he wants to solve for it, right? And he knows it's a multi-pronged approach to solve for this problem. If this happens, it's going to get much worse. And so
it's going to be terrible.
It's going to be terrible. So if we want our city to be a place that's thriving, where everyone is happy and healthy, and we want to drive down the street and see our neighbors being happy and healthy, it behooves all of us to say, we know that what happens in Washington impacts Houston.
Holy cow. Hold that thought. Is there an Emma on the line? Miss Emma, are you there?
Yes, sir. I'm here.
Miss Emma, you got me and Miss Avery Belyeu of the Montrose Center. What do you got for us today?
Yes, so Miss Belyeu, I just want to start off with saying thank you for being an advocate for mental health awareness, and especially in today's society, as we are seeing an increase in suicide and people in need of help. But my question for you would be, what would be an effective way to help spread mental health awareness, and especially to older generations who don't see seeking help as important and may be dismissive about it to their children.
Well, that's an interesting question. And I'm going to do a corollary to that question, which is there a difference in how people will respond to suicide and so forth between the seniors versus the young? I mean, do they view it differently?
Yeah, I think definitely we have been working hard across decades, right, to have conversations about mental health in our schools, right, and to do education and training and to help our folks to have, and I think, you being a caller, right, really kind of speaks to that, right? You obviously are invested in this conversation. Many of us grew up with parents or grandparents who didn't have the words, they didn't have the language, and or they were told that there was something they shouldn't talk about, right?
There you go.
And many of us saw the impact of that in our families, right? I think we saw that. I saw this in my own family with addiction, right? Because there was obviously a need for care. There was obviously a need to say, hey, something's not okay here, but a lack of resources and tools of what to do about it. And so I think a lot of our families have dealt with the negative impacts of that across years. And so I think that any one of us can be a cycle breaker. Any one of us can be that person in our family that says, I'm going to have a conversation about this. I'm going to say that mental health matters. I'm going to say that we need to be talking about our mental health, my mental health, our family's mental health, right? For example, I will say I go to therapy once a week. I am very vocal about the fact that I go to therapy. I tell my staff I go to therapy, right? Because I have to practice what I preach.
Yep.
So any one of us can lead by example and say, we're going to talk about mental health. We're going to name that it matters. We're going to share that with our family. And I think that's a big part of breaking the cycle.
Well, Emma, we, and I hear a beep in the background, Mr. Producer. I don't know if somebody's calling me. But Miss Emma, it just seems to me that we spend so much money as a society on our physical self, makeup and haircuts and all this, shaving products, but we spend like no time and no money and no energy on our mental health. Yeah. Am I right? I mean, it seems to me like we spend so much time on the physicalness and, how do we look and all that. But you know what? It's about how do we feel?
Yeah. And all those things are actually connected, right? Our physical health and our mental health are all the same. I think, for years we kind of divided them and said mental health and physical health. In reality, it's our health. Because our body and our minds are so connected. And we're starting to see that more and more in research, right? If you have chronic anxiety, that connection to your gut and your gut health is real, right? So the connection between our bodies and our minds, it's really very fluid. It's not really very separate. They're very, very interconnected. We have to take care of the whole person. Everything that is, physical health, mental health, all of it needs to be cared for together.
Amen for that. Miss Emma, you got a follow-up or anything there?
I just want to say I totally agree with you on that. I strongly believe that mental health does reflect on how our body reacts because our body is connected with all these different systems.
That's right.
And I definitely do agree with you on that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, Miss Emma, thank you. And you know what they say? Remember that song by Michael Jackson? I'm starting with the man in the mirror. That's right. I'm asking if he'll change his ways. That's no message could have been any clearer. If you want to make the world a better place, you got to and make that change.
That's right.
Yeah. In other words, speak up.
That's right.
Thank you so much, Miss Emma. So let's go back to something. We're going fast here, and I don't mean to, but let's come back to something, which is the Montrose Center itself. Is it one building?
Yeah, so we actually have two buildings.
You do? Okay.
Yeah, we have two
Let's
buildings.
Go through that.
So we have our main center, which is located on Bernard Street in the Montrose neighborhood. It's tucked back in the neighborhood. That is the hub for our community center and our social services. So in one building, we do a lot. On our first floor, we have a community center. And that community center is something that the community can access. They can rent rooms.
Oh, no kidding.
To do their own functions. About 55,000 people a year come in and out of that community center.
Wow.
It's used heavily by the Montrose neighborhood as a whole.
That's like a whole city.
It is. It's used heavily by the Montrose neighborhood as a whole, community organizations and neighborhood associations. It's used by the social service sector at large in Houston to have meetings and gatherings and do trainings. We also proactively do our own education and training. So, for example, all the incoming cadets into the HPD get trained by Montrose Center staff around LGBT LGBTQ
Oh, how
competency and
wonderful.
sensitivity. So they come into the building. Every new class of cadets comes into our building, which we're really proud of.
To
for us to train.
sensitize them, to understand
Exactly.
the community.
To help us train about sensitivity. And so we do that training in the building. And we host events ourselves, so that are about community building. And we understand, because we look at this holistically, right? We know that one protective factor, right, for mental health and wellness is community, is gathering. And so we do events to get people to gather in community. So for example, we did a concert in the building last week. This week on Thursday, we have a film screening. This last Saturday, we did a big event celebrating the 10-year anniversary of marriage equality. So we did an event called Love is Love. We had 10 couples that either recommitted with renewed vows or got married for the first time, which was super fun. So we did that in our center. So that first floor is a vibrant, dynamic community center, all sorts of things happening. Folks can rent rooms at a low cost. It's very low cost. We love the community to come in and do that, and it helps support our mission. And then on our second and third floors are where our services are offered and where our staff provides services. And so that's everything from one-on-one counseling and behavioral health care, therapy, case management for folks who have HIV and are living with HIV. That's a big part of what we have done historically, because we grew up during the HIV and AIDS crisis. As I mentioned, we have a program for folks who are victims of domestic violence. So we help folks who are fleeing intimate partner violence, sex trafficking, folks who have been trafficked, and hate crimes, folks who have been a victim of a hate crime, to get their life kind of stabilized. And we do a lot of work around substance use disorder and treatment. So we're there to walk alongside folks who are struggling with addiction to help them.
All those things you mentioned are some of the most difficult things of all.
Yeah, that's right.
Sex trafficking, domestic abuse and violence. I mean, those are just,
our staff is a special group of
they
humans.
gotta be.
Really special.
They're
group of humans.
angels.
And it's a lot of folks with lived experience, a lot of folks who are there because they've been through something similar, or they have a family member who does. Every person in the building, one of the things that's been so wonderful for me across the last year, getting to know this amazing staff, is to get to learn their why. Why are you here?
Yep.
And everybody has a story about why.
They're motivated by something bigger than themselves.
That's right.
It's not about I can make a whole bunch of money doing this or that. It's about I want to give back to the community.
That's right. And we work across the age group. So we have youth programming. So we have a program called Hatch, which is our youth programming. It's a 30-year-old program.
Wow.
Which is really amazing. The whole generations of young people have come through that program, and today I get to meet folks. In fact, last week I was interviewed by somebody on a podcast. She started out and said, "Hey, I was a Hatch kid."
No kidding.
Right? So she came up through our youth development program.
Beautiful.
We offer safe spaces for youth, and we do a lot of that conversation around mental health, mental wellness, right, to make sure that those youth are getting the resources they need to be resilient adults.
So second and third floor have all the action, but what's the other building?
Yeah, so the other building is our affordable.
And I know we have another call. I think I have another one calling, but let's just keep going.
Yeah, is our affordable senior living facility with a focus on LGBTQ seniors. And so that's called Law Harrington Senior Living. It's in the 3rd Ward. It's named after kind of 2 amazing folks in the LGBTQ community, has 112 apartments for low-income folks. And there we also have is a hub for all of our social services for seniors, whether or not they live in the building. So we provide all sorts of amazing social services, and we also try to address food insecurity for seniors. So every day we provide lunch, a free lunch, every single day at noon, and we do food markets on the weekend to provide fresh fruits and vegetables and things to folks in partnership with other organizations.
Do you work with like the food bank or someone like
we do. So
Biter Bites or?
That's right. So we work with the Houston Food Bank. Our meals, Baker McKenzie are the ones we work with, through the kind of meal program during the day. So we have a lot of partnerships, and we bring folks in. We have exercise classes because we have an exercise room. So we do exercise classes with the seniors, Zumba classes, right? They have movie nights there. So it's a hub for all sorts of social activity for the seniors.
Wow. We have another caller already.
Great.
So let's go to that. Let me make sure I got this right. Abe, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
You got me, Gilbert Garcia, with a tip from me, and we're here with the Montrose Center Chief Executive Officer, Miss Avery Belyeu. What do you got for us today?
Yeah, I have a question for Miss Belyeu.
Go for it.
Can you talk us through what happens when a youth walks in seeking support? I would like to hear more about how you ensure they're safe, heard, and empowered.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. So everyone who walks into our building, folks being empowered and folks being safe, of course, is the most important thing. And so, We have an amazing client connection team, right? So folks will generally come to our second floor. They talk to our client connection team. Those folks assess where the person is at and what they're needing right in that moment, right? So usually there may be some paperwork to fill out, right, to kind of get them started within our system and do a quick assessment as to kind of how they need to connect. And certainly if someone's in crisis, we deal with that right there and then, right? So if there's a crisis, sometimes people walk in and they're in crisis. So if someone's in crisis, we immediately handle that crisis, whatever that looks like. If they're looking for just more general resources, they might be immediately connected to our youth services team after walking in, so they can learn about all the different things that they can access. So it's really a quick assessment to say, where are you? How are you? And how can we show up alongside you and accompany you in this moment, whatever that may look like. So it's going to look different from person to person, but that key part of let's connect, let's talk, let's see how you are, and let's make sure that we're matching the needs that you have in this moment is always the first thing.
And there's no questions asked. There's no like, well, let me see your driver's license or your birth certificate, or let me.
Well,
let
certainly
me
not
see,
your birth certificate.
But I mean, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Are you a citizen? Those sorts of
right.
fear
So
that people have nowadays.
Yeah, we do not ask folks citizenship status. Of course, we do ask usually for some type of identification at some point, but oftentimes to make sure that we can, utilize grants to help the individual or utilize insurance to help the individual if we need to. But no, we don't ask folks citizenship status.
And then you don't have all right, you've got 1 month to be here. I mean, they're just here and become a client of y'all's as long as they need?
Yeah, so it really depends. Well, certainly, yeah, someone can be with us. We have clients who have been, coming to us for their one-on-one mental health therapy for 20, 30 years.
Interesting.
Right. Either continuously or off and on. So there's no limitation on how long someone can be with us across their journey. I think that's the cool thing, that we work across the lifespan from youth all the way to seniors, right? And when we work with youth, our approach to working with youth is we take a family-based approach, because we understand that we're really working with a whole family unit, not just the young person. And so very oftentimes when a young person comes to us, their family becomes involved as well, and that we sometimes offer family therapy, right, where the parents are engaged. We have support groups for parents, and so parents can accompany their young person, especially if the young person is struggling, right? We offer support groups for in partnership with other organizations as well that provide special and unique support to parents. So sometimes while they're youth getting support, the parents getting support. So we take this kind of holistic approach to make sure we're looking at their entire ecosystem of care.
How wonderful. But do you get some parents that say, I just want no part of that? And disown the child. I mean, just say, you know what? I'm just, I was raised this way, and I'm just not for that lifestyle. And you know what? Don't even ask me to come in.
Really,
they're probably the ones that need it the most.
Yeah, really, unfortunately, that does happen. I mean, that was my story, right? That's why I'm in this work. I haven't seen my parents in over 17 years.
Wow.
And that's their choice, not mine. And so absolutely, we do have that experience. Our goal always is to make sure that those individuals have and can identify who in their family unit is a support, right? And so oftentimes, if it's not a parent, it's an aunt, it's an uncle, it's a grandparent. Very oftentimes, there's someone in that family unit who is going to love on that person, right? Love on them enough, and we can walk alongside them to help them love them better if they need to. So very frequently, we can identify somebody in that family unit or that extended family unit that can come alongside that young person to be a support.
You mentioned that word. It's all about love. Everyone deserves and needs love.
I think the thing that we model at the Montrose Center that I think we could see a lot more of in this world is, and our clinicians say this, and I think it's beautiful, we are a place where people can come and there is no judgment. Wherever you're at, right? You have somehow found yourself homeless. There's no shame in that. Let's come and have a conversation about how we can help you. You have found that you are struggling with substance use disorder. There's no shame in that. Let's have a conversation, right? So we are a place that tries to model what it looks like to be entirely judgment-free as much as possible. We do a lot of internal work to make sure that we are meeting people without any type of judgment. And I hear from the folks who do come to us that that's what they experience when they walk in our doors.
That's so fantastic. Let me tell you, if you have some, if you feel, I don't know the right word, lost, go to the Montrose Center.
That's right.
There's someone that can help you. We got another caller already. Is there a Jesse there? Jesse, you there, or did I lose you? Jesse, every time I see that name, I think of that song. I wish I had Jesse's girl. I can't help that, Jesse. Please excuse me for that. Jesse, are you there?
No problem. Yes, sir.
Oh,
Gilbert.
this is Jumpin' Jess. How are you,
Yes,
Jess?
sir. I'm too blessed to be stressed.
There you go. And in fact, everyone knows Jumpin' Jess because he's a well-known radio personality for many years on Kakukuka, and he's a well-known DJ in the area. And his family, I think there's 150 of them, and they're all over the Latino areas, and he's a longtime citizen activist. And Jesse, didn't you just get a honorary degree from I forgot whether it's UHD or somebody?
Oh, that was HCC. That was a few years back. I don't know why it popped up on Facebook, but yeah, I did get an honorary degree from HCC for work in the community, and then made me a Dr. Jumpin' Jess.
Well, you know what? I'm glad it showed up on the Facebook because I saw it, and I want everyone to know. Let's shout it out now because Jesse got an honorary degree from HCC for doing great work. And you know what? That's similar to what they do at the Montrose Center. So real good. Jesse, tell me, what do you got for my guest or for me or for Houston and Harris County?
Well, I just wanted to, first of all, thank your guest for what she does because I know it's really a tough job, so thank you for what you do, Miss Avery.
Absolutely.
And the first thing I was going to mention, here in the East End at Milby High School, they had two recent suicides of high school students. So my two questions is there a rise in teenage suicides? And number two, like Gilbert was asking, how do you recognize those students that are having trouble or considering suicide?
Well, Miss Avery, before you answer that question, do you mean 2 times in the same school year, Jess?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
I mean, let me ask you. I went to a big public high school, and in Corpus Christi, Texas. I don't remember anyone committing suicide when I was as a student there all my 3 years of high school. Is 2 in a year? That seems unusual, and that seems high. Am I right or am I wrong?
No, you're right, Gilbert. But no, Miss Vicki Cruz, who was helping that and addressing that. But I was just asking if it happens to be a trend within our community or within the young adults right now. It's going on, and like Gilbert was asking, how do you recognize those people?
So, Miss Avery, what do you got there?
Yeah, so I mean, certainly we have seen consistently high rates of suicide amongst young people.
Is it going up though?
So we have seen an increase in rates across the last many years. What we've also seen though, which is really exciting with the utilization of 988, because it's made it a lot simpler, and we've done a really great job of educating folks about that. We have seen a huge increase in people getting help.
Oh, amen to that.
And so I think that's a narrative we also need to say.
Yes.
We've seen an increase in folks getting help. And that's really important. One thing I will elevate, because this is really hard, right, is that last week we learned the Department of Health and Human Services, there had been a special, so when you called 988, you could hit one number if you were a veteran to talk to a veterans line, right? Somebody who understands you, right? And you could hit 3 if you were LGBTQ to talk to a line where you knew somebody would understand. The Department of Health and Human Services decided to take that away, despite the fact that over the last few years, it served 1.5 million young.
They took away the number 3?
They took away the number 3.
Or all of them?
So, no, it's the number 3.
Just the number 3?
They took away the opportunity to talk to somebody who is going to get you and going to be non-judgmental. And over 1.5 million LGBTQ young people access that, according to the Trevor Project, since its inception. So unfortunately, while we're continuing to have a significant rate of suicide, we're also seeing people make poor decisions about taking away resources, which just doesn't make sense.
And it's not like that costs extra money, right?
Yeah,
I mean, it's just a function of having a 3.
Yeah.
You know what it sounds like? And I'm not making a judgment or anything. It sounds just spiteful, like just mean.
That's right. That's right. It is meanness. It is meanness. It doesn't make sense. It's meanness. It doesn't make sense. So, to the question that you're asking around how we make sure that people get help, knowing the signs, we talked about it earlier on the show, knowing the signs, what they are, and especially for school environments, and many schools have started to avail themselves of this. There are many trainings around recognizing the signs and intervening for teachers, specifically targeted for teachers, for school nurses, and for school counselors, right? School nurses are amazing because they see a lot of those kids. A lot of those kids who are not doing well, they end up in the nurse's office saying they got a bellyache, saying they're just not okay, right? So the nurse is a key player in this. And so a lot of schools have been doing great jobs of educating all those educators, making sure they know the signs, making sure we know what it looks like, sending out things to the parents, making sure the parents know, right? So it really is about making sure we do that education. We have amazing organizations here. Jewish Family Services is one of our partners, and this is a really big focus of theirs, is educating people with curriculum around the signs of suicide. So I think there's, there's also Harris County that does this work. So there's a lot of us doing this work of educating people about the signs, making sure that schools, especially for our young people, that everyone knows them and knows how to intervene.
Very interesting. Jess, you got any follow-up there, pal?
No, thank you very much, Gilbert. Keep up with the great work of educating the public. And I'm watching you live on YouTube, and I encourage everybody to watch you on TV.
So, can you tell I did hair and makeup today, Jess?
Oh, yes, sir. You're looking bright and shiny, like a bright and shiny penny.
Thank you, Dr. Jumpin' Jess. And please call in again.
You got it.
All right, my friend. So coming back for a second, you know what? I want to make sure we get some stuff in because you're not going to believe this. We only have like 10 minutes.
Look at that.
I know. I want to make sure we get everything in because it's very important. So what's the website or what's your number if people want to either, no matter what, they need help or they want to volunteer or maybe get a job?
Yeah.
How do they reach you?
Yeah. So montrosecenter.org. www.montrosecenter.org. Very simple. And follow us also on Instagram, on TikTok, on Threads, on Facebook, on all the social media.
Right.
So half of them I don't even use, but my social media staff's amazing. So that's a great way to connect because you can see what's going on, see what we're up to. A couple of things I would just put on the radar that are coming up, particularly this week, because this is Pride Month. So happy Pride, Houston. This is a month when we look back and talk about our history of all the work that we've done and talk about all the work we still have to do. And we show up proud and loud and with lots of color, right? To say that we're going to celebrate together as community. And so this weekend, this Saturday, is the Houston Pride Festival and Parade. And the Montrose Center will be there both with a booth and walking in the parade. So come by and see us, learn about us there. On Sunday, we have our annual Pride Brunch. You can get tickets on our website. It is the largest Pride Brunch in the state of Texas.
No kidding.
So we will have Mistress Isabel Brooks, who is a RuPaul's Drag Race queen, a local queen here in Houston. She's going to be performing for us. So come out on Sunday with us, support the cause by buying a ticket, showing up with your friends. It's always an amazing time.
You know, everybody knows I ran for mayor. When I was running for mayor, I would go to all the different parades, and by far the funnest one was the Pride Parade.
We know how to throw a parade.
I'm telling you, and I mean, people probably have this stereotype that, it's only going to be LGBT members of the community. Right. No, it's all Houston.
It's everybody.
And there's kids, and there's grandparents, and I mean, it's just wonderful.
Yeah, it's joyful.
It's really joyful. That's a great word. Yeah. It's really joyful. Yeah. It's fantastic.
That's right.
I will tell you, my first awareness, so to speak, was when I was at Yale, and I'm going to date myself. I graduated in 85, so I was there from 81 to 85, and it was right when they started GLAD Week, Gay Lesbian Awareness Days, and it was like a week-long celebration of things, and they had a movie screening of a newer documentary that had just kind of come out, The Life and Times of Harvey Milk.
Yes, yeah.
You've seen it probably. If you haven't seen it, Houston, it doesn't matter whether you're gay or straight or anything like that. It is phenomenal.
Yeah.
And I was in the room of probably, 500 people, and I've never seen so many people moved. And I was moved.
Yeah.
But I was thinking to myself, as a Hispanic, if I had seen, a Hispanic leader, treated poorly, and rising up to a pinnacle of power, making all this positive change, and seeing him murdered.
That's right.
I mean, that would be how it felt.
Yeah, and then his murderer got off.
Yes, that's right.
With the Twinkie defense.
Twinkie defense. It is such a moving show.
Yeah, terrible injustice. And I think, I keep on my Facebook a quote by him, which says, you got to give them hope.
Yes.
And that's what Harvey Milk would say about young people. And so I would say this today, right? We are seeing a lot of anti-LGBTQ rhetoric. We saw a really tough Texas state legislative session where we saw a number of bad bills pass. They're going to have really bad impacts on the community. But there's always reason for hope, because our community has been here before. We fought hard battles. And in the past, when we fought hard battles, we didn't have institutions like we do now. We've worked really hard across these decades to build institutions like the Montrose Center. So today, our community knows there's a place to go. You don't have to be alone. Right?
Right.
We're not going back into the closet, no matter how many bad bills pass.
Right.
We're not going to go back to 1970. We're not going to go back to the way things were when Harvey Milk was doing his amazing work.
He is tremendous.
Yes.
And of course, later they did the movie, not the documentary, but the one with Sean Penn.
That's right.
I thought he looked like he had the same hairdo, and he had that thing where I wanted to recruit you. That was another line. And then he said, "You got to give him hope."
Got to give him
what a great thing. Well, let me ask you this, because we're just running out of time already, but I've had a great time with you. What are the different silos? And I don't mean silos as in they're segregated, but the different parts of the Montrose Center, so everybody knows all the different things. We now know you do suicide prevention.
Yeah.
We now know you do things for people to senior facilities to live.
That's right.
But just are there other sort of areas?
Yeah. So, at our core is our behavioral health care and mental health therapy. And anyone can come and avail themselves of that, right? So if you're looking for an amazing therapist, we have top-notch therapists. You don't have to be someone who, is not able to pay. You can have somebody who can pay with insurance or private pay. That's about 50% of folks. We also, I will just offer, you don't have to live right in Houston. So about 50% of the folks who access our mental health therapy do so via telemental health.
No kidding.
So we have clients in Austin. We have clients in Denton. So if you're saying, this group of therapists really is going to get me, you can be anywhere. Anybody listening to this podcast, you can be anywhere, and you can sign up to be a client with the Montrose Center, and you can avail yourself of telemental health. So that's really good to know. And I think I've talked about most of the pillars: our anti-violence work, our SUD work, work around HIV prevention and testing and care, and our work with youth, and our work with seniors, and everyone in between, and our community work.
Well, let me ask something about HIV. And I have not, like anything else, we're very open here on the show. We're very transparent. I have not known of anyone personally that with HIV. But I know how dreadful it was, because I grew up in the time of HIV, when so many wonderful, creative, incredible artists and singers and actors and incredible people died of that dreadful disease. Is it as prevalent as it was then? I mean, you don't hear as much about it.
So we've made amazing progress. And the reason why we've made that progress is because we funded it, right? So we funded care and treatment. We funded prevention. So there's something called PrEP now, right? And in fact, it was just announced this week, there'd been a long-term clinical trial for folks to be able to get 2 shots a year for PrEP, and that prevents HIV. Additionally, the medication that people can get on after they find out they're HIV positive that keeps their viral load very low or zero, that prevents transmission. So we've been making a lot of progress because of medical science. And the reminder is, the LGBT community, we fought hard for that medical science, because at first it was being entirely neglected. Our president wouldn't say it out loud. What we are seeing right now, again, is a defunding, though, and that's really concerned, because we're already seeing overseas what the impact of that is. We've been the ones that have funded help and assistance and medication overseas, and we're now seeing that kind of attention turn inward to the United States and saying, do we need to be funding this? And the only reason why those rates are as they are is because we've been funding that, much of it free, for folks to have access. So we don't see a transmission rate that goes to the roof. And so this is a public health issue that requires continuous, dedicated attention, effort, and resources.
Wow, what great work y'all do. You're doing the Lord's work.
Why, thank you.
You know what I mean? You got to be an angel to be one of those therapists, because I can only imagine. This is going to sound like a weird word, but I can't think of another one. The dire straits some of these people are when they come in to see.
And the trauma.
The desperation, trauma. Where do I go? Where do I turn to? And their parents have kicked them out, or their loved one, I can just imagine, or maybe I can't imagine. But thank God you're there. Amen. So give it one more time, because number one, I learned something today. 988. My goodness, everyone should know that. It should be on everybody's refrigerator.
That's right.
911, 311. We have all these things memorized. 988, because sometimes that's the difference between life or death.
That's right.
And so we got to make it known. Montrose Center, where's it again? What's the address?
Yeah, so it's Bernard
Mm-hmm.
in the Montrose neighborhood.
Yep.
So if you go to our website, montrosecenter.org, follow us online, you can find exactly how to get there. You can see all our events coming up. If you want to get involved and volunteer, if you want to support us, right? Because we are a nonprofit and we need support. We need the community to support the work we do. So donations are always welcome as well. Love for you to show up and support however makes sense.
The most important thing you can do right now, though, Houston, is what I heard. Call your representatives and
Right.
tell them we need to keep funding for a lot of these nonprofits that are doing the things that you would think government would do, but they're not. So we need that support.
That's right.
And so that's the number one thing right now, because they're going through it on the Senate side, and then when the Senate gets their bill, it'll be different from the House, and then they go to reconcile it together, and then it'll go before the president, who's itching to sign it. And so this is the time. It is urgent if you want these services in your community. And I think we have about no more than 1 minute. Can you believe, do you remember the show Carol Burnett?
I do. I love the
Okay,
Carol
remember
Burnett show.
she says, I'm so glad we had this time together.
That's right.
And it's time to say so long. Can you believe it's been an hour?
This has been so much fun.
Isn't it?
I love it.
Me too. And so I just want you to, that camera happens to be on you the whole time.
Okay.
So you have about 30 seconds to say anything you want to your wonderful staff, because all 93 of them make the world go round at Montrose Center, right?
Yeah, they do.
Anything you want to say to Houston, Harris County? And remember, this is live on the radio show, and then, of course, it'll be on social media and everything else afterward.
Yeah.
But you're right there. You got about 30 seconds.
Yeah. Well, first I would just say happy Pride Month to
There you
Houston,
go.
Harris County, and all of the surrounding community. The Montrose Center is here for you. Know that you never have to go it alone. Our amazing staff, our staff are fantastic humans. We're here to help. We're here to care, free of judgment. So come to the Montrose Center, whether you're just looking for community or you're looking for resources, we're there for you.
And remember, she just said something great, which is we're all human beings, right? We all need love. We're all the same. There's only one race, the human race. Go to the Pride Parade, because the parade is a blast. And we'll see you next time on A Tip from Gilbert.
This is Gilbert Andrew Garcia of A Tip from Gilbert, talk, inspiration, and prayer. Listen to my show every Monday from 11 to 12 on KWWJ 1360 AM, KYOK 1140 AM, KCOH at 1230 KCOH.com, Sangeet Radio at 95.1 FM, 1460 AM, and Latino Sports, KEYH 850 AM. Call in at 832-570-8075 and follow me on social media. See you then.